I was working with a buyer on an offer for a home. I guess it was on Friday, and he asked me a question that is important. We don't talk about it a whole lot, and I don't really remember talking about it here on one of these Facebook tips, but I thought I'd kind of bring that up because it is something that's very important, and it affects a lot of things that we do in the real estate business. And what he asked me was this. He says, what about the appraised value? How does that work, and why is it so important? And I just sat back and I said, well, the basic thing is that the appraised value of a home just really affects a little bit of everything that we do in the real estate purchase transaction. And I just explained to him that one of the biggest things is that when you're buying a home, you want to make sure that you're paying a fair price. You know, that's above and beyond everything else. You want to be sure that you're paying a fair price. You don't want to overpay for the property. Of course, you don't mind if you underpay, but we don't see much underpayment going on in this kind of market that we're in now. And so I told him, I said, I usually spend about 30 minutes or so reviewing property prices whenever I'm helping the buyer with a offer, because it's important. You know, it's important to a lot of things. But the basic reason for the appraisal is to demonstrate to the lender when they're financing a property that the property is worth the price, at least, of what the buyer is paying. You know, they don't want to be financing a property that's not worth the value, because if something were to happen down the road with the value, or excuse me, with the payments from that buyer, and there's a foreclosure suffered, then there's going to be some problems down the road just for that reason. But anyway, that's one of the things I do. I spend quite a bit of time on that, and you want to compare homes in a similar neighborhood as you can, hopefully the same neighborhood, a similar square footage, maybe 200 square foot on either side, same home features, bedrooms, baths, size of the garage, those kind of things. The age of the home, you know, year built should be somewhere around 5 years of either side of the home that you're making the offer on. These are all things that are important to take into consideration when you're doing the appraisal comparison, or comparative market prices is generally what we call it. But anyway, the biggest problem is if it doesn't appraise, then the buyer's usually not going to complete the purchase because they don't want to pay more than the price is worth. But the other thing is they don't want to get caught up in having a problem with the lender, because the only way they're going to be able to buy that house if the seller does not agree to lower the price is if they agree to pay more than the house is worth, and not too many buyers want to do that. So the only way you can do that when a lender's involved is if you actually pay that difference in cash, or it doesn't have to be cash, but you pay it in more value. You don't finance as much of the property. So anyway, if you're thinking about buying a home, I'd sure be a little reticent about doing that without making sure you have a really good understanding of the value of the property, because you don't want to pay too much for it, and the lender won't basically make the loan if it's not worth the property value of the properties around it. But more importantly, you know, you just don't want to overpay for the house. And something else that you look at then is the seller can lower the price to what the appraised value is. Sometimes they'll do that, sometimes they won't. But if they don't agree to do that, that means you've spent more money on the process than you should have, because you're going to have the cost of the appraisal, which is basically $500. You're going to have the cost of the home inspections, the cost of the termite inspections. So you're going to have something like $1,000 tied up in the process. And if it doesn't appraise and the seller does not agree to lower the price to whatever it appraised at, that's just money that's gone, because you're not going to get that money back. If you have any questions at all and you want to talk about the options or what happens, I'm always glad to answer any questions you may have. Doesn't matter if it's covered by these tips or just general real estate questions. Give me a shout. Once again, this is Kyle No. I'm with First United Realty right here in the OKC Metro. You can always reach me at 405-210-5319. I'm always here to help renters and first-time home buyers become homeowners. Thanks again. Have a great day out there, And I hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.